So I decided that I wanted some more skirts. So I already had the Dominique skirt pattern by Tilling the Buttons, and I deliberated because I already had that pattern, but it does take a lot of fabric. Did I want to spend the money on the fabric but not have to buy any new patterns, or did I want to buy a new pattern and spend the money on buying a new pattern, have to cut it all out again and stuff? Anyway, in the end I did both, obviously. So I did the Dominique skirt again in a viscose lawn in this leopard print pattern because I really like leopard print, or cheetah print, some kind of animal print anyway. I like animal prints. And I also thought it was quite autumnal colours, like with the browns, and it's really simple construction, really simple to put together. This time I omitted the belt and the loops because I didn't like them from the first version, so it's even simpler. This fabric though had a bit of stretch to it already, and then you cut the pattern pieces out on the bias, making it even stretchier to give it like the nice kind of drape, as I said before. But I think the fabric stretched when I was either pinning it out or cutting it out. So some of the pattern pieces were a little bit, I don't want to say misshapen, but like a little tiny bit off, and it kind of gives it a bit of a odd, when I was attaching the pieces together at like the side seams, they're a little bit like wrinkled, I suppose would be the best way to describe it. So it's fine, you can't really tell, but it's just like clearly for me, again, it's understanding the fabric that I'm working with and also being careful and not stretching the fabric when I'm cutting it out. But it is quite difficult because like I said, my table's not big enough for me to lay the fabric out flat properly without it kind of stretching. I also bought a new skirt pattern from Liesl & Co, even though I found their patterns hard to work with. It's called the Everyday Skirt, and I used a visco crepe. This was a little bit of a slightly more pricier fabric, and it was nice to work with. It does feel really nice, but I can't really tell, to be honest with you, what the difference is in terms of why you pay so much extra. I mean, when you have really cheap fabric, I think you can tell, but I don't know, it was nice, but I don't really know what justifies the extra price. I like this skirt, it fits really nicely. It's just above the knee. It's quite wearable during the daytime and at work. The only issue I had with it was that the interfacing in the waistband became all twisted on the inside. I never really know what to do with interfacing because the instructions on patterns usually tell you to follow the instructions on the packaging of the interfacing, and the interfacing normally doesn't have any instructions, or just tells you to follow the pattern that you're working from. So, very helpful. Anyway, though, I still think that's a success, and it's a cute little skirt. As we moved into winter, so this is like November 2019, I decided to make some like sweatshirts. So I'd seen these I Am patterns online and really liked the look of them. But I always like to deliberate for ages because patterns are kind of a cost, and then you've got the fabric is a cost, and home sewing is just expensive, and it just is so much more expensive than just buying clothes because clothes are so cheap now. So I deliberated for a while, and I was deliberating between the I Am Lion and I Am Zebra. And then I saw that I could get an offer for a digital download with both of them in that was actually cheaper than just buying one of them as a paper copy. So I did that, got them both, made the I Am line first, and it has, I mean, these pictures aren't very clear, unfortunately. I didn't manage to get any pictures of me wearing them, I think because it was winter, it was just miserable outside, so it was quite hard to take pictures. It has a like volume on the shoulders, which is kind of the main detail, and then quite long cuffs at the bottom of the sleeves. It's a bit hard to tell, but like that whole thing is just the cuff. I picked this really fun loop back sweatshirting fabric with all these little people on, and it kind of looks like they're watching a football match or something because they've got like binoculars, and like they're all wearing like kind of what might be like team colours, except they're all wearing different colours, so I don't know. But I just thought it was quite fun fabric. It was pretty easy to sew. The pattern is fairly straightforward. I I did make a few mistakes of cutting pieces out the wrong way around, so I attached the cuffs. I attached one of the cuffs like sideways on, so it was like significantly shorter than the other sleeve, and also the fabric was just the wrong way around. So that was a good move. I had to take that off, redo it, add that back on. The shoulders, one of the shoulder is has a closure with like poppers, like kind of like press studs. I can't remember what they're really called, but like I think it was poppers, which I'd never attached before. They're fairly easy to actually attach, but it was a little bit difficult to get through the thickness of the fabric, but I managed it and that wasn't really a problem. The problem I did have is that I did not realise that this pattern was for overlockers or serges, which I do not have. I don't think it said it on the website that that's what it was for. I maintain my innocence in that I was tricked. But I did read it in the pattern that you could just add extra seam allowance if you were using a regular sewing machine, but by that point I'd already cut out all of my pieces, so it was too late. But the pattern is quite like a loose fit, and I had, I think, opted for a slightly bigger size, just to err on the side of caution anyway. So I decided it would be okay, and actually the size of the finished garment is absolutely fine and it fits me really well. It's still quite a loose fit, although not at the moment because I'm pregnant. But when I wasn't, back in November, I was able to wear this for like the whole of the winter really, and I wore it quite a lot, and I wore it at work a lot, and it was just quite nice and cozy. So I then decided to make the other version, which is the I Am Zebra, which is very similar, only it doesn't have the volume at the shoulders. Instead has it more down at the bottom of the sleeves, and then the cuffs are a little bit tighter, and then it has like quite a thick waistband as well. It also has, sorry, my memory card filled up, and even though I did the whole rest of the video, it didn't record. Anyway, as I was saying, I think, this is also a pattern for a serge or overlocker. So because it had worked okay with the I Am Lion pattern, I didn't bother to add any extra seam allowance onto my pattern pieces. But this fabric is less stretchy, I think, than the other fabric. It's a bit thicker. And so it does feel a little bit more fitted, a little bit tighter. The waistband doesn't have that much stretch in it, and neither do the cuffs, so they feel a little bit tighter. And the popper fastener things in the shoulder really struggle to correctly go through all the layers of the fabric, so you kind of have to hammer them in. You have like a top and a bottom that you then hammer in, and when I was hammering them in they kept kind of getting misshapen, and then you have to try and take them out, put them back in, which is kind of impossible. They're not really designed for that. And one of them actually fell out when I was wearing it, so at the moment it only has like 2.5 poppers in it, so I've not really got that much wear out of it, which is a shame because I really liked the I Am Lion one. But I think it's just my fabric choice was just off there. So there's then a big gap between November 2019 and March 2020. This is because I became pregnant and found out in December. I mean, although I wanted to keep going and maintain my good run of sewing that I'd kind of built up over the last sort of 6 months, it seemed a bit silly to sew up clothes that were non-maternity, that were probably not then going to fit me for very much longer. But it also seemed a bit silly to start sewing maternity clothes, particularly before we'd had all our first scans and everything. I knew everything was going to be okay, but also when I didn't really know what I was going to want to wear, or like what patterns were out there. There's not a ton of maternity patterns that I could find, but I did find these ones from Megan Nielsen, and I actually ended up getting a bundle with 4 different patterns in. So I have the Cara top, the Erin skirt, the Alyssa top, and then there also was a pair of Virginia leggings which I didn't bother trying to put together. I kind of run out of steam by that point, and they were going to be probably the hardest to get the fit right and the hardest to find the fabric for. These photographs are kind of out of order because I actually started with this green version. It's made out of unknown stretch fabric. I always think stretch fabric is just jersey. Any knit is just a jersey in my head. That's not quite the case. This was part of a Minerva Crafts stretch knit fabric mystery pack that you got, and you didn't know what you were going to get when it arrived. The colour is this kind of like green, weird green colour that I wouldn't have picked out for myself. But it's fine. It's just that it's a bit annoying that they didn't add a label with what type of fabric it was. I think that's a bit weird. So I don't really know what it's made up of, but it's quite a lightweight, loose feeling fabric. If that's how you can describe fabrics. And it has plenty of stretch in it. The pattern came up being very long, or the top comes up being very long, and I assume that's to accommodate your growing bump, because I only have a little tiny bump at this point, which has got a lot bigger by now. And there's like ruching on the side, although you can't really see it very well in the photograph. It just felt very long to me and too loose, and I couldn't really believe that I was going to get that much bigger. What a fool. So when I made it again in this cotton spandex jersey, which you might remember from the top that I made for my boyfriend, I had a lot left over, so I made myself a top. I exaggerated the ruching on the side, which makes the ruching more pronounced but makes the top shorter. It's also why there's so many wrinkles across the top, because my bump wasn't really big enough to accommodate the extra kind of ruching that I'd added in. But it did mean when my bump got bigger, the top became just too short. This fabric as well doesn't quite have the same amount of stretch as the green fabric, so even when I was putting it on here, when my bump was only quite small, I could tell that it wasn't going to fit for the whole of my pregnancy. I can, to be fair, still actually get the top on, but it's definitely on the tight side, and one of the side seams is already split. So I probably shouldn't have tried to alter the pattern, I think, in hindsight. Then moving on to the other maternity clothes that I made. So I made the Erin skirt out of a textured jersey fabric in this like nice green colour. I really liked the colour. I don't really have anything in this colour in my wardrobe, so I was really attracted to it, and the fabric is like textured and it feels nice. It's quite thick, and I was quite pleased with the fabric, although it doesn't have enough stretch, I don't think. Also, potentially I probably chose a size too small, but as much as I also don't understand fabric, I also don't understand sizes. Even when I look at the measurements on the pattern, I still can't quite figure it out. So this is an over the bump skirt. It's kind of like a pencil skirt. I went for the version that's kind of knee length with, and then added this like optional frill ruffle thing at the bottom, which I thought was quite fun. Pencil skirts are quite tricky. I don't think they're necessarily suited to my kind of body shape, and you can kind of see the fabric is like stretched across my hips and thighs, and that I don't think is really anything related to the pregnancy. I think that's just me and my body shape. So maybe I should have gone a size up, or used a stretchier fabric. It means that I just found it uncomfortable to wear. I mean, it wasn't really like too tight, it was just me. Like, I don't like tight clothes, so I found it too tight and uncomfortable to wear, and so I just didn't wear it. So the only time I actually wore it was in these pictures, which is kind of a shame. I didn't get that much use out of my maternity clothes. Even at this point, I was losing motivation to keep sewing them. This was in April this year, and we'd gone into coronavirus lockdown, so all of our April plans were cancelled, which was quite frustrating because we had quite a few things like planned for April. Obviously I know other people had it, the situation was a lot worse for them, but it was still just kind of frustrating that I couldn't really go out and do anything during my second trimester. And I was working from home and just inside all the time, pretty much. I was just wearing my leggings and like my tops, either the ones that I'd made myself, I did get a bit of wear out of, or the ones that I'd bought some maternity clothes really cheaply online in the sale. And just the thought, like, I just didn't want to wear an uncomfortable skirt. Like, I had no reason to. If I was going out somewhere, maybe, but there was no reason to just like sit on the sofa wearing a skirt that was uncomfortable. So I just didn't get any wear out of it, which is a shame. The other and the last maternity piece that I made, I also never wore, apart from in the pictures. So this is the Alyssa top. It was a viscose lycra jersey in this like pale pink colour that I thought was quite pretty. It's a funny top. I mean, it was quite easy construction. It's quite straightforward. There's sleeves, and then there's a obviously like a back piece, and then there's a wrap tops, like the bodice is a wrap top, but it kind of stops just like under the bust. It's very short. I didn't realise how short it was. This is the top that I saw online, and I really liked the way it looked in the pictures and thought it looked really good. And because it's a wrap top and you kind of tie you have these like long fabric ties that you can tie around yourself, it can accommodate a growing bump, and whatever shape you are, you can like adjust it to fit your body. And that just seemed like that made sense, and also it looked really good, like I said, in some of the photographs that I saw. But it's so hard to put on because the actual bodice stops so high up. You then just have to wrap the rest of your bump and back in these really, really long strips of fabric that I just was getting tangled up in the fabric, and it was like twisting up and just looked really weird. It's really, really difficult to wrap it around yourself, particularly at the back, and not have gaps where you can just see your skin through. Same with the front, but the back was harder, and it kind of ends up looking like you are wrapped up in bandages, especially when I picked this pale colour. Had I gone for a darker colour, it might not have looked quite like that, but it did just look like I'd injured myself and then wrapped myself up in loads of bandages. But it was really hard. It took several attempts to get it to look like this, and I don't even think this looks that good. And I just thought it would be such a faff to wear. Like, every time you put it on and off, you have to spend so long like sorting out all the bits of fabric. I kind of think because it comes down below the bump, and because the leggings I was wearing were over the bump, every time I went to the toilet I would probably have to put the whole thing on. If you wanted to use it as a nursing top, every time you kind of pulled it down and put it back up, you might have to like adjust the straps, the strips, whatever. And it just seemed like such a faff. It's also like really hard just to even hang up and like put in the wardrobe, because the bodice is so small and you just have these like huge swathes of fabric. It's just, it looks really weird off the hanger. It looks odd on when you're, it looks, what am I trying to say? It looks really weird when it's on the hanger, and it looks weird when it's on your body. And it just seemed like it would be such a faff. Also, like I said, the construction was quite simple, but you do have to hem the top and the bottom of these really long strips of fabric, which just took ages. And it's jersey, so you don't have to hem them because they won't fray, but I always just think that looks really messy. So I always like to hem, even though my hemming also looks quite messy. And that was the other thing, is that the wrong side of the fabric, like, if your sewing isn't neat enough, and it so easily gets like, the fabric so easily like turns round, so you have like the wrong side showing, where you can see like all your hem and like the underneath sewing. It just didn't work for me at all, so I just never wore it. And like I said, I was really running out of steam by this point. So that is the end of the sewing that I've done this year. It's kind of a shame that I didn't manage to do more, but life just kind of got in the way. It's also kind of an expensive business, buying fabric, buying patterns, especially if you're not then going to wear the clothes. So my plan now is to wait until my bump's gone down a bit, and like I had the baby and I've kind of gone back down a little bit, so I kind of know what size I'm going to be, and then make some nursing tops, because I have bought some patterns already online. For nursing tops, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to make those successfully, and then I will share them on the channel. But that is kind of the end of this Me Made book. So if you have any thoughts about it, please leave them in the comments below. If you've liked having a look through, please give me a like, and if you want to see more videos, please subscribe.